Hi folks, welcome to Just Off the Highway. I'm Prodgers. Now last episode was our creepy Halloween special, which featured the Spookbrug, the ghost bridge in Heidelberg in Gauteng province of South Africa. And if you haven't watched it yet, please do. But while looking for evidence to support that ghost story, I stumbled on something different but just as unsettling. A documented historical event that doesn't feature a ghost but still haunts the landscape today. It's a bitter tale from the end of the Second Anglo-Boer War in 1902, right here in Heidelberg. There was a notion that this was a gentleman's war and that there is some sort of sporting way to fight. War doesn't work like that. And the dozens of military graves here in Heidelberg Kloof Cemetery make that very clear. The mysterious event happened very close to where I am right now. This is a few kilometers south of Heidelberg, near a place called Riviersdraai. This was a mission church, and at that time British forces were stationed in blockhouses within view. Now in late 1901, after the British were beginning to gain control over more and more of the country and essentially grind down resistance in the Transvaal and Orange Free State republics, one British officer, a Captain Ronald Mears, made a habit of riding out beyond his lines to talk to Boer fighters. Sometimes he'd carry a white flag of truce, and he would tell them all the news about how British forces now dominated the landscape, and convince them that they had no chance of winning, and try to persuade them to surrender, if not for themselves, then for the sake of the innocent women and children. Now, whether he sincerely wanted to end the fighting or whether this was a kind of low-grade early psychological warfare, it's hard for me to say. But on this occasion, witnesses here saw him meet the Boers. He thought they might be willing to surrender, but they'd been sent to capture him. 3 young Boer soldiers under the command of Salmon Van As, who held the rank of Veldkornet, which is roughly equivalent to a lieutenant, intended to stop him from spreading despondency in the Boer forces. They met here at a watering hole used by Boer forces, a place called Wolverpad. Here is where eyewitness accounts and official reports begin to get murky and often contradict one another. Was there a white flag? Some accounts say Mears had one. Others say the Boers arrived with a flag of truce. Who was armed? Who wasn't? Statements made later say Mears did not have his rifle, but he carried his revolver. The youngest Boer was Louis Slubbert. He was sent out unarmed in front to talk to the British officer. But why send him? He spoke no English. Who attacked first? British troops in the distance said that Mears rode calmly past Slubbert, but some Boers claimed that Captain Mears charged past him at a gallop, storming down aggressively on Van As. And what happened next? Did Van As and Mears exchange words? Did the Boer try to arrest the Brit? Did Mears resist and draw his revolver? Did Van As deliberately fire first? A single shot was fired, and Mears was killed. The Boers withdrew. They definitely took Mears' revolver and his binoculars, but other accounts say that they also stripped the body of boots and most of his clothes, and this detail outraged British public opinion against them. Local historian and tour guide Tony Burish helped clear up some of the details of this mystery.
I do feel that Van As did it in self-defense. because Captain Myers had a revolver on him, and he had pulled that revolver according to Louis Slabbert. And Slabbert saw when Myers had fallen off the horse that there was a revolver and binoculars that actually rolled away. They could never find it. Van As had given the revolver and binoculars to his commanding officer, and it wasn't present at the trial. And Slabbert actually said, "Where is the revolver?" But they could never show the revolver.
Months later, when peace was negotiated, the Treaty of Vereniging, which ended hostilities, contained a general amnesty for combatants. But there was a clause that excluded certain acts contrary to the usages of war, what today we would call war crimes. The British listed 3 specific instances, and the Boers involved would have to stand trial. The white flag incident involving Mears and Van As was one of them. The Boer peace delegation had little choice but to accept. None other than Boer General Louis Botha assured Van As that his life was not in danger, and Van As handed himself over voluntarily here in Heidelberg.
Okay, so at the end of the war, after the war, the Heidelberg commanders, they handed in their rifles. Van As spoke to General Botha, and Van As actually asked General Botha, what must he do? Must he give himself up, or must he actually go and run to the old Southwest Africa? And General Botha said, "Don't worry, it's only a hearing, nothing will happen."
2 weeks after the end of the war, Van As was given a rudimentary court-martial. He handled his own case, but was given very little opportunity to defend himself.
To me, a fair trial would have been to get officers from a different regiment. He wasn't given the right to call his own witnesses, and the witnesses that were presented there was Louis Slabbert, okay, which gave a fair account of it because Louis Slabbert was there at the time. And there were some witnesses from a nearby missionary station that were too far to actually see what was actually happening.
He was found guilty within 3 days, and only 4 days later, he was brought out of this jail, stood up against this wall, and executed by firing squad. The bullet marks in the wall are still visible today.
And they offered him a blindfold. He said no, he would like to see where he's going, and they executed him. There were 10 Somerset soldiers, 3 had live rounds, 7 had blanks.
His body was rather unceremoniously buried in an unmarked shallow grave, but later on it was exhumed and reburied here in this cemetery. It's not too far from the grave of Captain Mears. So what about the fate of Salmon Van As? Was it victor's justice? Simple revenge for a war crime? Was it self-defense? One thing that we do know for sure is that a murder did take place. The only question was it out there in the veld, like the court-martial decided? Or was it up against that wall? And there's another twist to the story. The father of Veldkornet Van As claimed that he received a letter 2 years later that acknowledged that the court-martial process had been unfair and invited him to apply for compensation. Family didn't respond.
There are people that do recognize the name. There was a family of Van As that were in Heidelberg. There was a descendant Van As that actually died of COVID. But there are no more Van As's here in Heidelberg.
So often when I'm going just off the highway, I look for one story and I find another. And that's what happened here in Heidelberg. I can only encourage you, stop in small towns, talk to the people. You will be amazed. Please support me with the thanks button just below this video, or you can buy me a coffee on buymeacoffee.com/Prodgers, and there you can get free regular bonus stories. That's all from me. Cheers.